Hi everyone, welcome back to Bryan's Business World. Today I'd like to talk to you about the ways in which people begin their entrepreneurial adventures. Now, in my experience as a lifelong entrepreneur, there's sort of four different pathways that people follow in beginning their entrepreneurial journey. So the first pathway is the individual who sort of throws themselves into the entrepreneurial world. Typically, they have little or no resources at all. They, quote unquote, bootstrap it. They typically do not have much in the way of financial resources or reserves, or simply have nothing at all. Their back is often against the wall, and they just jump right in and go into the battle. The second way I've seen that people go into the entrepreneurial world is that they have some limited resources, or perhaps even a significant amount of resources. These individuals have had a job or career, at least for some period of time. They might have someone in their household who's got a fairly good, quote-unquote, steady job, who provides a cushion for them. They might have some savings or some other resources, and they have a limited but respectable sort of buffer to take the entrepreneurial plunge. Third pathway that I have seen is the proverbial side hustle or side gig. And that's where someone is working a full-time job and they begin their entrepreneurial venture, quote unquote, on the side as a side gig or a side hustle. And quite a few businesses are launched that way. The difference between the third and the second one is that typically in the third pathway, this individual really isn't being supported by anybody else. They're sort of on their own. There's not a greater structure, other people, family, or parents or this type of thing that are helping them out, actively supporting them. And the fourth way is what I call launching from the comfortable perch. And I don't mean that in any sort of negative or derogatory way. This is typically the individual who's worked for many years, even decades, in a regular career field or in a job, and have more or less retired or gotten to a fairly comfortable position. Maybe their house is paid off or paid down. They've got some fairly good savings or investment accounts, and they want to launch that lifelong dream they have. They want to pursue the lifelong dream of having their own business, whatever it may be. And so that's sort of the fourth pathway. Now, there's no right or wrong way to become an entrepreneur. We're all on our different journeys, we're all on our different paths, and what works for one, by definition, will not work for another. But I want to briefly talk about what people can learn or benefit from the various different pathways, and which pathways may be the most, I want to say the word is not rewarding, but the most productive and beneficial for you in your life. Now, on pathway number one, most people, correctly by the way, would assume this is a brutal and difficult way to go to entrepreneurism. Your back is against a wall. You have very little margin for error. There is tremendous stress in battling to survive. You have no resources, no backup, nothing of the sort, and you are truly bootstrapping everything and fighting for years and years just to get to a survival point. And then there's years and years after that to get to what I would call a point of prosperity, or of middling prosperity even at that juncture. So that is a very hard environment, a true crucible to test you. But I think a lot of people who go through that become extremely successful entrepreneurs if they can survive it and come out on the other side. So why? What's the magic sauce with that? I think the magic sauce is the amount of sheer difficulty, sheer challenges, and just the enormous array of failures that you experience in a very brief period of time. And for me, that's the path that I went on. And I wouldn't give it up for anything, despite how brutal of an experience it was. It forced me to adapt, to innovate, to improve, to overcome problems in short order that were coming at me with incredible speed and ferocity. So it created the ability to address and solve problems in me that honestly I haven't seen rivaled in many other people. The only other people I've seen that really rival it are fellow entrepreneurs who have had that same experience. Now, would I recommend this to most people? Candidly, no. I think most people aren't going to make it through it. It's going to be a really brutal experience, and that's not going to be beneficial for them. But for the few who emerge, who think they can take it, it will be incredibly invaluable, not just in your business career as an entrepreneur, but personally in your personal life as well. Now let's talk about some of the other options. I think that door number 2 is an excellent way potentially to proceed that's less disruptive. You've got a support system. It's not as stressful. You've brought in other members of your family. They're on the team. Everybody's working in a coordinated fashion. And you will still have plenty of problems to solve and challenges, and you will get a lot of growth from that. But I think that's also less stressful, and you have really brought everyone in your family or in your support system into a common goal. So there can be a lot of value from benefit too. And believe me, there will be no shortage of problems and challenges you're going to take on, even though that is more quote-unquote cushy than door number 1. Door number 3, which is the side hustle. And this is like I said, most businesses get started this way. Most entrepreneurs go in this way. A couple caveats with doing it this way. One caveat is that it's very hard to judge when you should quote unquote go whole hog. If you don't commit enough to the growing entrepreneurial venture, the quote unquote side hustle, then you'll never really see it take off. And because you have the security, quote unquote security of your regular job, will you ever take the leap? So in some ways, the safety and very rational setup of having a full-time job and then slowly growing a side hustle can ultimately be the downfall of the new venture. You stay attached to the job and you do not push yourself to take the jump and go into it. With that, and also one problem with approach number 3 is you don't really develop the problem-solving skills of heading into it full-time. As an entrepreneur full-time, you have to learn to adapt, improve, and solve problems, unlike most other people in society. And when you're operating at a very low level of intensity on a part-time, you will, I hate to tell you, you're not going to develop those skills and that experience the same as you would otherwise. So while it's an excellent way to test out the temperature of the water and get going, it's very low risk, at a certain point you will hold yourself back on the full-time job, side hustle way. And the fourth one, the fourth method of starting your entrepreneurial journey is, like I said, I don't want to appear derogatory by saying it's from a lofty perch, but candidly, a lot of entrepreneurs looking at that would say it's from a lofty perch. You've got a large financial cushion, you've done well typically elsewhere, and now you're ready to pursue it. But with that being said, I think there can be some wonderful engagement and challenge to entrepreneurs going through the fourth way. So they've had a career, let's say as an insurance salesman or whatever it may be, for many, 20, 30 years, and they really want to open their own bed and breakfast. They're a good cook. They enjoy lodging and not only lodging people, but meeting people and being sort of the quintessential host of a bed and breakfast. That's been their goal for a long time. Maybe in a beautiful tropical setting. I know it sounds great, doesn't it? So there's nothing wrong with that person doing that and doing so from a lofty perch. But I think those people can get a really great benefit of some new and important challenge later in life. I think it can really be a dynamic and energizing thing for individuals at those ages where they get out and they do something completely new. They have to face all the challenges that every entrepreneur does, but it's not quite as stressful on them because they have a large cushion. Their children could be raised and grown, for example, and they're out of their regular career. So the last option, I think, is another great way to go for a lot of people. So what are some important takeaways you can have from our discussion of sort of the 4 pathways to becoming an entrepreneur, to starting your entrepreneurial journey? I think one is that, if you are not going to go whole hog onto the entrepreneurial journey as a side hustle, I think you will have very limited growth and limited skill set building. And again, that was the third pathway where someone had the full-time job and the side hustle. Very rational, low risk, great way to test things, but ultimately could hold you back. And then the other ways, other takeaway would be the more you can throw yourself into being an entrepreneur, the more growth you're going to experience, the more your capacity for problem solving is going to grow, and you'll have a tremendous advantage over virtually anyone else in the economy in your ability to improve and adapt and change and really solve problems. I hope you've gotten something out of our discussion today, and I look forward to having additional sessions with you. And please feel free to leave some comments below or email us. We'd welcome your feedback, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you.